To know India, we must start from the beginning. But how can we begin to describe everything that happened over thousands of years? To discuss all of India's history is a daunting proposition. It is too rich, too diverse, and too non-linear to be presented in a single YouTube series. So we limit our ambitions to identifying bits and pieces of factual information about some groups of people and their culture in some detail before marching on and looking at a different set of people with a different culture living entirely different lives. In this way, we reduce our burden and learn at a pace which helps us absorb the information being presented. The first such learning opportunity is presented to us by the people who settled the very first cities in the subcontinent some 4700 years ago. These, of course, are the cities of the Harappa civilization. Namaste, Namaskaram, Sat Sri Akal, Adab, hi, and welcome to the History of India from our nation's textbooks.
We have hit a keyword. Harappa.
That sounds funny, my computer friend, but that's okay. You're just programmed not to pronounce anything correctly. It's called Harappa. Harappa was the first city-based civilization established almost 4700 years ago on the subcontinent. The first site of the Harappan civilization was actually found by accident by an East India Company deserter in 1829 in the then princely state of Punjab. In fact, the story of the discovery of Harappa is almost as interesting as the story of the civilization itself. The discoverer of this ancient site first thought erroneously that Harappa was established around Alexander's campaign time, which is around 300 BCE. This initial discovery was then followed by many years of neglect and vandalism as the site was raided continuously for its bricks. This particular practice of raiding was sped up by the East India Company after they annexed Punjab and started developing railway lines in the region in 1848 and 1849. It was likely that the site would have probably been lost or completely destroyed under the East India Company rule. However, things turned around when a big political change followed the First Indian War of Independence in 1857. That rebellion ended the company rule and crown rule was established in India. In 1861, this new British government established the Archaeological Survey of India, with Alexander Cunningham as the survey's first Director General. He revisited the ancient site to carry out a survey and published his findings in 1875. Unfortunately, he too wrongly understood the site to be of Buddhist origin around 600 BC or 2600 years old. Several years later, Hiranand Shastri of the ASI reported the site to be of non-Buddhist origin and more ancient than previously reported. Subsequently, in the early decades of the 20th century, Dayaram Sahani and Rakal Das Banerjee discovered seals at the sites of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Based on these finds, the archaeologists concluded that these sites were part of a single archaeological culture. Finally, in 1924, the then head of the ASI, John Marshall, announced the discovery of a previously unknown civilization in the valley of the Indus River, and the efforts of the ASI saved Harappa from turning into a ruin that may have been lost to the world forever. So, what did the Harappan cities actually look like? Were they like modern cities? Well, just like modern cities, they did comprise of different segments. Some parts consisted of public buildings or affluent residents, while others may have been for regular people. Usually, one part of the city was smaller but higher in elevation. This elevated part of the city was described as the citadel, which separated it from the lower, larger eastern part of the city by strong walls of baked brick. In Mohenjo-daro, the citadel had structures that were used for special public purposes such as a warehouse or a large public bath. This large public bath has been called by historians as the Great Bath, and it consisted of a special tank built on the citadel. The tank was lined with bricks and coated with plaster and made watertight. Water was probably brought in from wells and it was drained out from well-laid drains after use. The water storage and drainage systems were in fact a very unique feature of almost all Harappan towns. For water storage, most houses had freshwater wells in a separate room that could be used not just by the household but also by people who were just passing by the house. The houses also had separate bathing areas and were connected by an elaborate drainage system. A city-wide drainage system transported water from house drains into street drains. These drains were laid out in straight lines and had a gentle slope to enable flow. The street drains were made of bricks and were covered with loose bricks that could be removed for cleaning the drains. In some cases, limestone covers were used. There were inspection holes provided at intervals to check the drains. This was really quite impressive, especially if you consider that no other civilization at the time showed such a sophisticated use of water, and even major metropolitan cities had sewage issues till as recently as the 19th century. Not just water resources, but food resources were also very well managed. Most cities had elaborate storehouses to store food and commercial goods. Food was then taken from storage to be stored for use in individual houses. These city houses were 2 or 3 stories high with rooms built around a courtyard. The walls had no windows. Some houses had internal staircases to reach the second story or even the roof of the house. The courtyard was probably a center for household activities, and food was likely consumed in this space as well.
We have hit a keyword. Commercial goods.
Hey, way to redeem yourself, digital voice. That's right, commercial goods were found at the sites of the Harappa people. Commercial goods are goods imported or exported for sale or for any industrial, occupational, institutional, or similar purpose. The discovery of these commercial goods point to a very impressive feature of the ancient people. That is their ability to trade goods with people who lived at very far distances. So how do we know about this trade? Well, the first clue is that all the ancient Harappa sites yielded these unique objects such as copper or stone tools, red painted pottery, beads and jewelry, stone weights and seals, which helped them to be identified as part of the same civilization. The discovery of these items indicates that goods were produced and stored in a large quantity. The discovery of seals especially points to an active trading community. These seals, which eventually helped rediscover the Harappan culture, were unique to the Harappan trade system. They were most probably used to stamp bags of goods that came into and went out of the cities. If the seal was unbroken when the bags were received, then that meant that the goods had not been tampered. Also, the seals probably helped identify the owners or the destination of the goods, or both. Not only were a large amount of goods produced, but a very different variety of goods using very different raw materials were manufactured at different sites. Just like big cities today, for example Mumbai and Kolkata, have similar features but are not identical, the cities of Harappa weren't identical either. Different trades and geographical conditions led to the construction of different features in different cities. Some sites were identified as major production hubs, although production activity was also carried out in bigger settlements like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Some of the major cities which have been discovered as a part of the Harappan civilization are Kalibangan, Rakhigrahi, Lothal, Dholavira, Balakot, Nageshwar, and Chunodaro. Of these settlements, Chunodaro, a relatively small settlement, was identified as a center of craft production, using a variety of materials such as Skarlian stone, jasper, crystal, quartz, and steatite for bead making. Similarly, Nageshwar and Balakot were settlements on the coast and were specialized centers for making objects out of seashells. Two other major Harappan cities were Dholavira and Lothal, which were located in the region of present-day Gujarat. Lothal, which was located beside a river body close to the Gulf of Khambat, was a major site of stone, shell, and metal production. Other raw materials, such as semi-precious stones, were also found here, indicating that it was also a center for bead and jewelry making. Polishing and drilling equipment was also found at Dholavira. So how were these sites identified as production centers? Just like detectives look for clues for solving a case, archaeologists had to look at the clues they got while excavating these sites. These clues were the discovery of a number of rejected material samples, tools, unfinished objects, and raw materials. Clearly, only major centers of production would leave behind such materials to be discovered almost 4,500 years later.
We have hit a keyword. Excavation.
Wow, that was really impressive, digital voice. The second proof of international trade comes from excavation at other sites inside and outside of India. For example, a trade between the Harappan people and Oman was established based on clues excavated from these two sites. A distinctive type of vessel, a large black clay jar of Harappan origin, was found at Omani sites. These jars were probably used to carry some liquid product from Harappa. The thick black coating was used so that the liquid did not leak out. On the other hand, significant amounts of copper was discovered at Harappan sites, which was not a native metal to that region. After chemical analysis, it was discovered that this copper had traces of nickel, a unique feature of copper found in Oman. This same Omani copper was also found in Mesopotamia, giving proof that multilateral trade existed back in that time. Other proofs, such as Harappan beads, weights, and seals discovered at international sites, confirm this trade relationship. The final proof of trade comes from discovery of very precise cubical weights made of a stone called chert. The discovery of these weights proved that a sophisticated and precise system of weighing objects existed such that they could be priced accurately and exchanged.
I have an important announcement. You have run out of time.
Wow! How did you know that, computer voice? It's almost like you have a digital clock. Oh, that makes sense. Of course, you have a digital clock. Anyway, I look forward to continuing on our journey in the next video. Until then, be happy, stay healthy, and keep on learning.